Artistic media surrounds us in our everyday lives. Books, films, murals, and music are all examples of artistic media, and that they are all considered to be art, and their creators are, technically, considered to be artists. However, I'd like to focus on a particular form of art today, books. But not only would I like to focus on books as a whole, I'd like to focus on good books, on books that make you think, on books that make you feel. Think of a good book. What made it good? Was it the plot structure, the style, the relatability of the main characters, the questions it provoked inside of your mind, the emotions that it sparked? It could be a multitude of things. However, regardless of what that thing was that made that book good in your eyes, it is incredibly likely that, either indirectly or directly, the author of that book was thinking of the human brain. When you look at human brain activity whilst a person reads through brain imaging, it's noticed that a myriad of brain regions are activated, such as the frontal lobe, the temporal lobe, and the angular and the supramarginal gyrus, as noted by Harvard Medical School's article titled Reading and the Brain. And while these terms aren't going to be fully elaborated on in this speech, their actions will. This is what writing a book taught me about the human brain. In the spring of 2021, I had an idea for a book that now follows me in its completion today, Similitude. I knew from this book's creation that it would be highly psychological and written in the first person, which both of those things entail that I would need a much deeper understanding of the human mind that is not just my own. This is because, if you have read a first-person book, you understand that it primarily focuses on one person, the main character. And so I would need to understand what makes a book impactful to the reader. I needed to understand how books and general art influence the brain. There was a vague understanding going into my book's creation. I knew that I needed to show, not tell, to be realistic, and so on and so forth. But it's so much deeper than that. While you read, your brain's limbic system, the part of your brain responsible for emotional responses, activates an emotional response. Your brain's hippocampus, part of your limbic system, deals with memory and nostalgia. Putting your book's character, especially when in first person, in a situation that is both very emotionally charged and relatable to readers, putting your book's character in a memorable, nostalgic situation will activate this hippocampus of your limbic system. The greater your limbic system is activated while you read, the more emotionally invested you are in the book, and in turn, the more invested you are. The book becomes a page-turner and puts your brain in a vulnerable state of much emotion, where the author can then lead you into the remainder of their book as you read. This is how to hook a reader. Writers cannot, to put it simply, approach emotions in their writing without truly putting thought into their readers' psychological and neurological responses to their books. But with this knowledge of a person's psychological response to books via their limbic system, however, the basic idea of show, not tell, becomes not so basic when you think of it neurologically and psychologically. Show, not tell, is an idea that you may have heard numerous times in English classes. When an English teacher assigns you a narrative assignment, it is something that they will often say because showing is much more effective, especially in fiction, than telling. Showing versus telling is the idea that, in books, you can show information to a reader by writing it in detail and tell information by explicitly stating it. Authors will often utilize this idea to make their expression of information in their books of greater value or significance to the reader via showing and telling information that is of not as much significance. This is an idea that I thankfully knew beginning my book, but why exactly does it work? Here is that answer from a neurological perspective. We know that, as you read, brain activity is exercised greatly. Different brain regions become active based on what exactly you are reading and how exactly you are reading it. Now, Why is brain activity so greatly exercised? That answer lies in the fact that, as you read, neurons in the region responsible for understanding the topic that you are reading about activate. For example, if you're reading a book where the character is running, neurons that are active while you run will activate. But if you are simply told that a character did something, such as running, your brain will not have as much relation to that action, and you will not consider it as much. However, if you're shown in a book through in-depth description that a character did something such as running, your reader's brain will produce neural activity in what relates to running and have much relation to that action being described. That is because neurons in the region responsible for understanding that topic have activated, and depending on how in-depth that author describes that something, will become greatly active. Another example is, if you wish to emphasize the eeriness of a scene in a book, you will not describe in depth the perfectly human average character of the scene, but you'll describe the dark, off-putting hallway, or whatever will prove that scene's eeriness the most. That is because if you describe in depth that perfectly human average character, your reader's brain will produce neural activity in what relates to imagining this, and most likely, just not much consideration for those eerie elements of your scene. However, if you describe in depth or show that dark, off-putting hallway with strong words and descriptive elements, your reader's brain will produce neural activity in what relates to imagining this, and most likely, fear with that. Emphasizing features of a scene through showing them rather than telling them to the reader allows an author to prioritize what exactly they wish for that reader to feel. But with this discussion of authors and their indirect or direct to the attention to their reader's psychological or neurological responses to their work, I'd like to piece away from the sole topic of how books make us feel and focus on the whole. Artistic media makes us feel, and it is engineered to do so. Good films make us cry, think, sit on the edge of our seats, and many other things. Good art makes us ponder. So do good books. So does good music. Creators of artistic media, whether it be books, films, music, or any other form of art, focus on the human mind in order to make their creations impactful. We are subjects of creators' psychological and neurological understanding. We are made vulnerable by the emotionally charged advertisements and many other pieces of content that creators create. And while this does not mean that this is our weakness and that creators are against us, it does mean that the human brain is widely recognized as a complex, intricate tool of what is sometimes vulnerability. Today, I'd like you to consider what made a book, film, song, or any other piece of art good in your eyes, and apply that to the human brain. What makes artistic media good, and the application of that to neuroscience and psychology as a whole, is what writing a book, considering its readers along with many other things in that process, taught me about the human brain. Thank you.